Hi everyone. Please can you pop your name in and just say hello to us so we know who's on the call. Say who you are and where you are coming from. What's that? Let me just turn all of these other bits off now. Oh, we've got people acting already. Oh, that's always exciting. So I'm going to share the screen and just start playing that first bit there. Phil, get inside. Hi, Phil. Thanks for joining, Phil. I am going to play this last bit. So we're just waiting for a few people to turn up, and what we're going to do is we're going to be our guinea pigs, and so we're going to just play a little bit of the debate whilst we just let people set in. I've also just sent the young actors away. We've been working all morning on this, so they're just gone for a little something to eat. They're going to come back, but to give you a couple of minutes whilst people are coming. What we will do for the performance is share this bit of footage. So snuggle yourself in, make yourself a cup of tea, and we will let everyone arrive, and we'll start proper in about 3 minutes. Okay. So if you fill in. So, and by the way, do chat with each other, because I'm in mind that you're on here and someone on the chat is someone you've been looking for all your life. Just do that. Then we also have Craig Green here from the United States. We'll be saying hello. But again, we'll just let people settle in a minute and we'll just start playing this.
The following program is from NET, the National Educational Television Network.
Debate: James Baldwin versus William Buckley. Subject: has the American dream been achieved at the expense of the American Negro? This debate was held recently at the Cambridge Union, Cambridge University, England, and was recorded for use by NET.
Debating hall of the Cambridge Union. Hundreds of undergraduates and myself waiting for what could prove one of the most exciting debates in the whole 150 years of the Union history. I don't think I've ever seen the Union so well attended. There are undergraduates everywhere. They're on the benches, they're on the floor, they're in the galleries, and there are a lot more outside clamouring to get in. Well, the motion that has drawn this huge crowd tonight is this: that the American dream has been achieved at the expense of the American Negro. The debate will open with 2 undergraduate speakers, one from each side, and then we shall have the first distinguished guest, Mr. James Baldwin, the well-known American novelist who's achieved a worldwide fame with his novel, Another Country. Then opposing the motion will be Mr. William Buckley, also an American, very well known as a conservative in the United States. I must stress a conservative in the American sense, author of a book called Up from Liberalism, and editor of the National Review, one of the early supporters of Senator Goldwater. Well, this is the setting of the debate, and at any moment now, the President will be leading in his officers and his distinguished guests. He'll take his chair, and the debate will...
So... Let me just share this with you. So thanks for joining us, everyone. Marge, hi. Oh, we've got people from England. We've got people from England. We've got some other bod, Steve. Hi, Steve. Thanks for joining. We have got a few other people that I've been reliably involved are coming from abroad. But let me, whilst we're waiting for people to sign in, let me just share this with you. Thanks for joining us. We are going to this extraordinary production of James Baldwin and the debate at the Cambridge Union. But what we're also looking at is our methodology of how we work using the Theatre of Peace programs. So I'm going to give a quick overview of that. You can see this in context, then we'll go straight through the read-through of the play. And during the course of this, please post any thoughts and questions and comments. And then after we've done the read-through, myself, Becky, who's a CEO of the Northampton Film Festival, is here, and we'll have a chat with you. And you can talk about the piece and talk about our methodology. But Undiscovered Country, we use the Theatre of Peace process to explore conflict in organisations. We have two profiling tools, one which is looking at the whole organisation, and one is looking at the individual. We do keynotes, 24-hour retreats, coaching, and change programs. Everything we do is based on this simple peace process, including the rehearsal. So we clarify our purpose, we understand our roles, literally roles, responsibilities, and the benefits, and then we come up with a plan, then we act upon it, rehearse it, reevaluate it. And that simple process of the Theatre of Peace process is also the basis for the leadership work that we do in schools and businesses. The peace process that is underpinned by the work of this extraordinary man, Johan Galtung, who sadly, he passed away this year on the 17th of February. And what the play has been written is really is a homage to Galtung's methods of creating cultures of positive peace and understanding how easily it is to slip into violence. And he defines violence saying it's present when human beings are influenced so that their actual somatic and mental realizations are below their potential realizations. By that, it means if someone's physical, practical, emotional and spiritual needs are not met by the place they're in and the people they're with, that's an act of violence. And he shared this, he came up with this, which says actually what we should be focusing on in our institutions, organizations, and in our communities is conflict, not peace. Because we get sidetracked by a bad partial understanding of what peace is. But if we accept that everything is in conflict, and in theatre, and conflict is essential, but if we have the maturity and systems, we can turn that conflict, creative conflict, into something constructive. If we don't, then it becomes destructive. And then if it's constructive, it can lead to peace. And if it's destructive, it leads to violence. And that violence can be direct violence, physical, such as structural, the institutions, the hierarchies, or the culture. And what we're looking at in this play is the institutional, structural, cultural, and direct violence towards people of difference, particularly in the context of this debate, race, and whether or not the race question in America was the means whereby America was able to fulfill its dream, or it has ideally the lives and the well-being of a huge section of their community, the Black community. And so what we want to explore when we take this into schools is understanding that peace can be positive, which leads to social justice. And indeed, this production is about social justice. But being aware of the concept of negative. Where negative peace, Galton, is the absence of direct violence. So if someone's not actually swearing and physically attacking you, that's acceptable. But the indirect, the structural, the institutional, the rules, the regulations, and the culture, that's what creates the openings for real violence. And that's what we're going to explore in this play. And we use simple principles in our work, both in piecework and in our rehearsals. And this is a quote from E.M. Forster, how he sums it up. And he says, only passion and both will be exalted, and human love will be seen as its highest, living fragments no longer. So what we explore, and we are exploring in our rehearsals and also in the work that we do in institutions and schools, is that balance between the stuff that you can see, the rational, the measurable, the quantifiable, and the intuitive, the gut feeling, the creative. And it's that point, that Venn diagram of that point of the rational, the intuitive, which is where we have creative conflict. And this is why theatre has the capacity to really use this piece process so effectively. And the other dynamic is looking for art and science. And science is in the arts, but it's also in research. And I think this is where we sit as a creative community, particularly the communities in Northampton where we're working at the moment, is finding that dynamic energy to bring stuff that can be useful, stuff that you can't necessarily explain. We use something called the butterfly model, and it embraces these two contrary forces to create balance and dynamic growth for individuals, institutions, and communities. And we use serious play, and that recognizes and integrates both science and art at every design, delivery, and assessment. So Wolfgang Dietrich, the role of theatre in piecework, and Wolfgang Dietrich is in charge of programs at the University of Innsbruck, working with the military, working with organizations, and using creativity, using the arts as the vehicle. So that's what we're doing today. We're using a proven method of research. And Dietrich said that no art form, to my knowledge, explores the human conditions as thoroughly as theatre. No one calls so heartily for human relations to be fulfilled. None is such a fruitful place for self-creation, and no art changes more. And my background is, on the picture on the left, it's my training in Japan with a very traditional avant-garde theatre director, Tadashi Suzuki. And on the right is my training. I trained at the Bristol Opera Theatre in classic theatre. So I've been really interested in the balance and the conflict between the East and the West. And if we focus on values rather than process, and we want to create the peace builder who's aware or enlightened, and you'll see the reason why we've used the word enlightened, is if we can focus on the competencies and the values. So the values that we bring into work within our rehearsals, and the values that we see within institutions and organizations that can make change, can actively engage, great, and they're motivated. And again, if anyone has pop it in the chat, we'll pick it up later, because I want this to be a dialogue as much as anything else. But we also look at the factors that create character. Obviously, we're archetypes. So in terms of shaping our character, we ask, where is the character in terms of their relationship with time? Are they present? Where's their relationship in terms of kindness and their kindness to themselves and others? Where's their relationship in terms of their ability to adapt to and understand the process of change? Where is that character in terms of the ability to change their mind when something has been shared, and can they shift their thinking? And where is their character in terms of once they have learned something, apply it to and become consistent? So the peace builder, the competencies of the peace builder or the leader as peace builder is they can be present, they are kind, they can engage with change, they can believe the evidence of the thing that's actually in front of them, and then they can put it into practice. And you'll notice each of those, it's the same colors, it's the same stages, because underpinning that is the neurology and the psychology, which I'm not going to go into today, but the underpinning science. So you can approach this in any way you want. You can approach it in terms of, I'm just spinning through that because you don't need to know that. Is a combination, the profiling tools that we've created, it's a combination of my work on change and positive psychology. And I met up with Hilary Kremin and Terence Bedington, at a conference. We were celebrating the work we've been doing there. And their book schools. And so Hilary and I have created this. And this is the framework for the profiling tool for the organizations that we look at to see how people are experiencing inner peace, outer peace, community peace, and ecological peace. And that's simple systems. That's peacekeeping, which is about simple rules. We need our rules. We need our rules, but what happens when the rules break down? We need to have a more restorative approach, so restorative practices, family group conferencing. But if we actually want to be a change in the world, which is what Baldwin is saying in this, is we have to be more proactive, more clearly investing in our own well-being, our relationships with others, and our impact on the global world, but also the ecology. So again, if anybody wants to talk about this any further, just send a link or go to the website or arrange a 30-minute conversation with me. But this is the basis for the profiling tool to do the whole organization or the whole school assessment. So when we work with the groups, we do profile tools, so we can do 10 or 10,000 people in a group, and to see how people are experiencing peace. We've been working with this wonderful school in Holt School in Birmingham, and we've been working with them for a couple of years, and they have been our trial for this, and the impact of that has been great. And I'm going to be back in Birmingham next month, working with other schools there for a project celebrating this work with the Royal Society of Arts. Yeah, I'll post something on my social media. Well, what we do is we take all of that data, so what is known as a heat map of everyone in the organisation is feeling about those aspects of inner peace, outer peace, community peace. And we present it, and again, thanks to Mark Allen from Ed in the Clouds for his extraordinary work on this. We present it in a creative way. So this is your right hemisphere. This is the creatives going, oh, I can feel what's going on here. And then we can drill into the data. So when we work with institutions and organizations, we do the profiling, we create a heat map, and then we engage them in the creative process. And this is really this is our entry point, using story and storytelling. And the essence of the storytelling process, looking at the work of Joseph Campbell, the hero finds himself in a place they don't want to be. They have the call to adventure. Various things happen and then they accept the call. They cross the threshold. They go through the path of trials, and then they return with the elixir. What we've done is take the well-known restorative justice and social discipline window, and we have embedded the 5 conflict styles. And Hilary and I created this to look at the wisdom-based aspects of the peace builder. Peacemaker, peacekeeper, warrior, facilitator, and then the challenge when it becomes excessive and destructive. But the next iteration looks like colleagues in restorative practice, and we've using the restorative justice. Now, some of you will recognise this. We've got the actors; they're here, they're fed, they're coming. Go and see. Some of you will recognise this. And so this is the next iteration to look at the peace archetypes. And the peace builder has to be adaptive. And when they're balanced, they can manifest the characteristics of peacemaker. 3 minutes, ladies and gentlemen, before we start. Okay. Facilitator and peacekeeper and warrior. And whilst we can adapt to those 4, the danger is each of us get sucked into the excessive. And our peacemaker can become a savior, our facilitator can become a servant, and our peacekeeper can become a bystander, and our warrior can become the dictator. And so all of these fine people, these young people, have all been profiled on this, and we've spent our time preparing how are they as people opinion on this profile. And what we're going to do now, I'm just going to hand over briefly to Craig Green. This is Craig. He's live. He's in New York, and he's the co-writer of the piece. Craig, hi, thanks for joining us from New York. Do you want to have a few words to share with the people joining us today?
Hi, thanks to everyone for showing up, and hi to the cast. Never met you, seen your pictures. Thanks for taking part in this. What you're doing. So, I'll try to be brief. I know you guys are digging into this, and there are people watching. Roy and I were talking about the debate with Baldwin and Buckley a few years ago, and Roy figured out a way that we could actually recreate it at Cambridge, and I think it was a year or two ago that we did that. But then we talked more about the debate, what Baldwin said, some of the issues that were coming out, and we were thinking about how to make this people to hear some of the issues that Baldwin brought out about conflict, about peace, about listening to other people. And that's how we kind of came up with the idea of having the play about the debate. The issue with conflict and peace, and what Baldwin talks about, is that when you boil it down, even after listening to the debate between Buckley and Baldwin, it's really about listening to the other person. Conflict, as we all know, is not simply about the issue that's there. It's about the idea, are you listening to what the issue is, and are you listening to the other person? And so we hope that with this production, we can get people to think about that. Roy and I are old. We have ideas of what's going on. You guys in the room are young. You understand. Stop it. Just stand back. Okay. You understand what's going on. There are newer conflicts. There are newer ideas of what peace is. There are newer ideas of what it means to be an individual. There are newer ideas of what it means to help a community. Roy and I have ideas about this. You guys have the reality of what that is. And so we hope that with this piece, we can try to bridge that. And we can try to find out what, as the title says, what's the missing piece? What is it that we need to do from this point on? So again, thank you all for agreeing to participate in this. If there are any questions that you have for me, if I can't answer them today, please let Roy know. He'll give you my contact information if you want to talk. I'd be more than happy to do that. But today I just wanted to say thank you for participating and helping us.
Thank you. Thank you. Are you staying, or are you going to be jumping off to do something in your time zone now?
I'm probably going to stay quietly for a few minutes, but then I'll jump on.
Okay. Thank you. So a few people have been posting some questions. Let's have a quick look before we go in. Thank you very much. Love to see all over the place. Thank you, Sandy from upstate New York, United States. And Marge from Massachusetts. Hi, Marge. You can have the slides, Marge. We will send them out. And if you have any questions, so this is now going to be a dialogue, a debate with us. I'm going to share the slides with you for the Miss Piece. We're going to go pretty much straight into this. But what I'd like to do first is introduce the actors. So, in fact, you okay? You all right? Have you got your thing? So, as I say, we're focusing on using theatre as that's part of my sort of piece research. And James Baldwin says, whoever debates others is debating himself, and that's really in his book, The Fire Next Time. But also for those of you who want to look at the link between peace and conflict, but we go back to Paulo Freire's book and the pedagogy of the oppressed. And what is driving this conversation is Freire says, in order for the oppressed to be able to wage a struggle for their own liberation, they must perceive the reality of oppression not as a closed world from which there is no exit, but a limiting situation which they can transform. And his friend, another Brazilian man with lots of hair, Augusto Boal, said that the theatre itself is not revolutionary. It's a rehearsal for the revolution. And so for the next hour or so, we want you to be part of rehearsing for the revolution. We hope we'll get some thoughts from you. We'll read through the piece, so we'll answer any questions. It is a rehearsal. It's not a performance. The guys only got the scripts a little while ago. So we would like your feedback on anything you hear today. Any words, any phrases, any characterizations, anything that Richard, Amala and Harry may say. But I'll just let you use themselves. Okay. So, Marla, do you want to say a little about who you are and why you're here today?
Hi everyone, my name's Amala Allen and I'll be playing Sophie / the podcaster. Well, I actually was a part of this journey from a little while ago. So I'm just happy to be back. I actually did one of the first read-throughs with Roy and another girl called Scarlett. I studied here at Northampton Uni, graduated with a 2 in drama and criminology, and now I work in production. Very happy to be back and to be doing this read-through. So
and we are happy. You're also part of the development of the script was based upon our work together, and you'll see that your own lived experience.
Indeed.
So thank you. And who are you?
Hello guys, my name is Richard Akindele and I'll be playing Micah / James Baldwin. My journey started a long time ago, about 10 or 11, where I really got into acting, and since then it's brought me to the University of Northampton, where I studied acting for 3 years, and off the back of that got signed by an agency for my first professional year out in the big wide world. Where I've written my own play and had the rehearsed reading at the Royal Dungate here in Northampton, and I'm also assistant directing currently with a wonderful director called Tonya Deli Campbell, who does a lot of work in the Midlands, and we'll see what we do in the future with some freelance work. And that's about it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Harry.
Hi everyone, I'm Harry Unwin. I've been sort of all about the place as well, coming from Stevenage, so just out of London. And I also studied at the University of Northampton alongside Richard. We both graduated this year. Since coming out of uni as well, I've been doing a lot of work in theatre and education, doing a lot of stuff, touring the country, doing stuff such as Chelsea Story, County Lines, all the hard-hitting social issue ones. And
What company is that?
that's with Narrative Alchemy.
Plug.
Thank you, Sean. And speaking of course, he recommended me. That's how I got this opportunity to be here today and help out with this piece. But yeah, essentially, I've been all around the country delivering not only the shows, but also speaking afterwards, doing the post-show talk, actually doing the signposting to people and the thousands of students that we've spoken to and meeting loads of different people. And yeah, also writing my own little show. And yeah, excited to be here today.
Lovely. So what we're going to do is, okay, we're going to treat you like our audience. I'm going to share some slides and some clips for you. Projected on there by the magic of technology. Becky, did you want to say anything?
Yeah, I'm happy lean in. There we go. Yeah, hi, I'm Becky. I run Northampton Film Festival. And this is our newest venture, smallest art centre in the world, here on Northampton Monks, where you're literally seeing it all. It is 3 meters by 4 meters, and it exists because we believe Northamptonshire is a place of rebels, revolutionaries, misfits and mavericks, creators and change makers. And what a better place to do that than on the square in the smallest art centre in the world?
Excellent. Fantastic. So you're part of the journey. You're not just observers. We don't just do that. So we want your input. This is going to be really helpful for us to help shape this. So we've got 18 people on the call, which is nice. And if you want anything, then please post it in and post some questions. And then this will take us we'll go straight to the run through. We won't be stopping it. And then we'll take your questions. So let us go back in time. And I'm just going to, this is, yeah. Know some people will be playing to the students when they come into the room. So just give us a couple of minutes to get us into the feel of what was happening at the Cambridge Union on the 18th of February in 1965.
The following program is from NET Television Network.
Debate. James Baldwin versus William Buckley. Subject. Has the American dream been achieved at the expense of the American Negro? This debate was held recently at the Cambridge Union, Cambridge University, England, and was recorded for use by...
And here we are in the debating hall of the Cambridge Union. Hundreds of undergraduates and myself waiting for what could prove one of the most exciting debates in the whole 150 years of the Union history. It really, I didn't have ever seen the Union so well attended. There are undergraduates on the benches, on the floor, and in the galleries, and there are a lot more outside clamouring to get in. Well, the motion that has drawn this huge crowd tonight is this, that the American dream has been achieved at the expense of the American Negro. The debate will open with two undergraduate speakers, one from each side, and then we shall have the first distinguished guest, Mr. James Baldwin, the well-known American novelist who's achieved a worldwide fame with his novel, Another Country. Then opposing the motion will be Mr. William Buckley, also an American, very well known as a conservative in the United States. I must stress a conservative in the American sense, author of a book called Up From Liberalism, and editor of the National Review, one of the early supporters of Senator Goldwater. Well, this is the setting of the debate, and at any moment now, the President will be leading in his officers and his distinguished guests. He'll take his chair, and the debate will begin.
So, we go to the script, we go to the top. So, when you come in, the stage, I'll read the directions, the actors will do the acting. So, the stage is a simple set, a few chairs and a table, there'll be two jackets. One's going to be a black formal dinner jacket, this is Buckley's jacket. The other is a smart 1965 style suit jacket, which is Baldwin's. And they're hanging on to the chairs, and on the table are all the technical requirements for a podcast. Microphones, laptops, glasses of water, paper, pens, etc. And above the table is the screen, and project on the screen words. It's that 1/9 of its population is beneath them, and until that moment, until the moment comes when we, the Americans, we, the American people, are able to accept the fact that I have to accept, for example, that my ancestors are both white and black, that on that we are trying to forge a new identity for which we need each other, that I'm not a ward of America. I'm not an object of missionary charity. I am one of the people who built the country. Until this moment, there is scarcely any hope for the American dream because the people who are denied participation in it by their very presence will wreck it. And if that happens, it's a very grave moment for the West. James Baldwin, 18th of February, 1965. We played the clip that you've just seen, and that was Norman St. John Stevens MP, and William F. Buckley and James Baldwin. Screen image is shown on the screen, and then the actors playing Sophie, Carter, and Micah, dressed in normal attire, enter.
Welcome, everyone. In this Theatre of Peace play, we're taking you on a journey back in time to a pivotal moment in American history, a time of great division, of racial tension, and of a clash of ideologies.
We're going to introduce you to two men who stood on opposite sides of this divide, men whose words continue to resonate today.
Their names are James Baldwin and William F. Buckley Jr.
And we're going to bring their debate to life. So, it's the 18th of February, 1965. and we're in Cambridge, England, and the world is on the brink of change. This play isn't like any play that you have seen before, because we want you to not only be the audience, we also want you to become the directors and maybe even the actors.
As you watch the play, be aware of anything that the characters say that interests or annoys you. At the end of the play, we will invite you to share your thoughts, questions, and comments. We would like to hear what you have to say.
The characters will then come back on stage for you to talk to. You can question them to find out more about why they said and did what they did. You can also offer them some advice on how they can resolve the conflicts we are going to witness now.
We begin the scene with 2 sixth formers and friends since primary school, Carter.
That's me.
And Michael.
That's me.
Arriving in their school hall, it's the end of the day on a Friday, and Carter is explaining to Michael why they're using the Cambridge Union as a setting for their play.
Michael and Carter step forward and walk into the centre of the space as they talk.
But why was the Cambridge Union created in the first place?
To shape British politics and society. Leaders, where students can learn the art of oracy, public speaking and persuasion, or humiliation, ridicule, depending on your point of view. Many prime ministers have passed through its doors.
Interesting.
We're using a debate from the union as the focus for the new competencies qualifications, also known as the C-levels, that have been introduced by the Department of Education this year. Our group, me, Sophie and Khalil, are combining history, English and drama and technology for our C-level exam. Our supervising teacher is Mr. Wooten, and he thinks that going back in time when racism and violence were more explicit to the present time, that here and now, where racism and violence are not so obvious but certainly present, would be a great framework for the group activity that we need to work on for the exam.
Mr. W is also supervising us. He loves this new project-led, evidence-informed, and competences-based approach to teaching, learning, and assessment. In fact, I think he's more excited about these new exams than we are.
What is your group focusing on?
Farming and agriculture. How the agriculture industry needs to adapt to climate change and population growth in the coming 50 years. We'll think we're nearly there and we'll be running it in about an hour.
Our presentation has changed a lot, but we think we're there. Thanks for coming to our run-through.
No problem. Well, as my group has booked the space for an hour, can we start?
Well, I'm not sure where Sophie and Khalil are. They should be here by now. They usually arrive first.
Have they messaged you?
He checks his phone.
Oh, I missed this. Sophie sent it half an hour ago.
What does it say?
Something serious has happened and we will be late. We might not even make it.
Carter, I can't hang around. We have to do it another time. Luke?
No, don't go, Micah. Hang on.
Hands in the script.
Will you test me? Sophie and Khalil have nailed their lines, but I'm not still quite sure of mine.
Sure. Who am I?
You, my friend, are the cause of arguably the most controversial debate in the union's history. You are James Baldwin, black playwright, novelist, and civil rights activist, friend of Martin Luther King and Malcolm X. Khalil is playing him. Now, I'm playing William F. Buckley Jr., a white American conservative who had a very different view of race relations in America.
Micah begins to read the script.
This looks familiar.
We've put together a 20-minute performance. If Sophie and Khalil ever turn up, we've imagined what it would be like if their debate were a podcast.
Micah realises that he's heard this before.
I know this.
What do you mean? Have you read this?
My grandmother was there at Cambridge. She wasn't one of the students, but she went and waited outside as the debate was being broadcast to those who couldn't get into the chamber.
What?
Sidney Poitier was going to be there, and she had a crush on him, and she wanted to hear Baldwin. 2 years ago, she found the debate on YouTube and said she was there.
So you've heard what Baldwin said?
Sophie enters but does not say anything. She's watching Carter and Micah and she is upset.
I've sat through the debate many times with my grandma. I know the speech.
What was important about this debate was that Baldwin, at the height of racial violence in America, called up the black community to seek to understand why so many of the white community believed that African Americans should not have the vote. He warned us that unless and until we can listen to and try to understand each other's stories, that we will never be able to break the cycle of fear and violence. We want to focus on the importance of finding a shared point of contact and understanding. The idea is that stories can do that. They are what we all have in common, what connects us. He was asking for compassion towards another community that was treating African Americans with disrespect by denying them a voice.
Only connect.
Where have you been? Is everything okay? Where's Khalil?
He's not coming.
Why?
Sophie ignores him and just goes to the set.
Where are the chairs? You were supposed to set up everything.
Are you okay? Why is Khalil not coming? What's happened?
Let's just run through this like we planned. We've only had this space for an hour and I don't want to waste any more of my time. Let's get into positions.
Carter and Michael look at Sophie, but they don't say or do anything.
I'll read Khalil's lines. Carter, can you get into your position?
Well, Micah can stand in for Khalil. He was going to go through the lines with me anyway.
Have you learned your lines?
I know my lines.
They take their positions. Carter puts on a jacket and picks up Khalil's jacket.
Micah, stand here and put this jacket on. We're not doing a full dress rehearsal, but it will help you get into the part.
Can you two please get ready?
Micah and Carter join Sophie at the centre of the stage, facing the audience. Micah has a script and reads from it.
It is believed that the Cambridge Union began after a drunken brawl between rival college debating societies. After the clashes, order was restored and the groups banded together to form the Cambridge Union Society.
In 1866, the Union moved to its current location, near the Round Church on Bridge Street.
The rules for the debate have remained consistent since then. A motion, a statement, idea, or a policy is put before the audience.
It begins. This house, followed by the subject or topic for debate. This house would provide for, or this house believes that.
There's an opening government, which proposes the matter to be discussed. You have the opening opposition, the initial argument against the motion.
Then come the closing government and the closing opposition, who deliver the main arguments on the motion.
Speakers before the House have included Winston Churchill, Theodore Roosevelt, Archbishop Desmond Tutu, Emma Thompson, Robert De Niro, and Stephen Hawking.
Today, we have one of the most memorable debates. Black author, playwright, and civil rights activist James Baldwin and white conservative author, academic, commentator William F. Buckley Jr.
On February 18, 1965, when they met the Union, it was time of political and social unrest in the United States and the United Kingdom.
The world, much like today, was in conflict.
To witness the debate, students were crammed inside and outside the debating chamber.
The BBC filmed it and broadcast an abbreviated version worldwide.
When you listen to Baldwin and Buckley, think about the times in which they lived. What was acceptable then would not or should not be tolerated now.
We have taken the more offensive and racist language out of the debate for reasons we're happy to discuss with you later.
Michael and Carter get to their positions on the podcast studio. A large screen behind Sophie displays historical footage and images that resonate with the discussion.
Again, welcome to those of you joining Peace Talks. Today is the 18th of February, 1965, and we are joined by James Baldwin and William F. Buckley Jr. to debate the motion, has the American dream been at the cost of the American Negro? James Baldwin is an author, playwright, whose works spoke on civil rights, race, love, and the need for moral grounding. His book, The Fire Next Time, warns that unless they are dealt with the underlying issues of inequality and violence, the situation in America would worsen. William Buckley, the writer who created the National Review magazine and is a leading conservative in the United States. When he was a 25-year-old student at Yale University, he wrote a book called God and Man at Yale. Welcome to you both.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Thank you for your kind invitation of learning and debate.
The motion before the House today is, has the American dream been at the expense of the American Negro? It is an important one. So important that our podcast has been split into two parts.
As Sophie speaks, images are shown on the screen above them.
Last week, we heard from current Cambridge students, Mr. David Haycock and Mr. Jeremy Burford. Mr. Haycock spoke in favour of the motion. Mr. Burford spoke against it. The comments and feedback on social media and the national press have been intense and very divided. We've never had such a response to the debate in the whole history of the Union. This week, we are expecting no less of a response. Please post your comments during and after debate using the hashtag #MissingPeace. Mr. Baldwin, you're here in favour of the motion. What are your thoughts?
Good evening. I find myself, not for the first time, in the position of a kind of Jeremiah. I'm sorry. Who was Jeremiah?
He was an Old Testament prophet. Some refer to him as the weeping prophet due to the depressing nature of his messages.
A bit like you then, Carter.
What?
A bit like you. Person you bring to the party only to realise they're going to bring the mood down by bad-mouthing their friends and speaking about them behind their backs.
I think I'd better go.
That might be a good idea.
Michael goes to leave, but he's stopped by Carter.
Michael, wait.
No, Michael, I think you should go.
I've got nothing to hide. Say what you've got to say, Sophie.
Really?
Yes.
In front of your friends?
Yes.
Your black friend?
What's that got to do with this?
You know, we called our group on the new PC exam Peace Ambassadors. We chose this because we all share a passion for peace. We all wanted to be ambassadors for peace, not contributors to violence.
What are you talking about?
Do you like my hair, Carter?
What?
My hair? Do you like it? It's not too messy.
What?
What's going on?
Hashtag Black Lives Matter, but too many braids.
Carter begins to realise what Sophie's referring to. Carter pulls out his phone.
Soph,
Hashtag White Lives Have a Hair.
This is a mistake. I didn't mean to like the post.
What's happened?
Hashtag messy hair. Hashtag zoo. No, that's not going to upset me. That's not going to upset me at all.
I swear to you.
You just told Michael that we have to find where we connect. It's the stories.
It was a mistake. I would not do that to you.
What?
I said I was sorry.
Saying sorry and being sorry are two very different things. I don't think I can do this.
Sophie goes to leave.
Sophie, wait. Why don't we just run through it as planned and then see how we feel? Let Khalil have some time to decide what he's going to do. But you two are here now, and you have a choice. You can walk out and work it out. Isn't that what your piece is about? Break the cycle of violence and use the conflict and not ignore it. Connect. This could be a great journal entry.
Okay, let's get on with it.
Great. Thanks, Soph.
I'm not doing this for you.
They resume their places.
Michael, go from the beginning of your speech.
Good evening. I find myself, not for the first time, in the position of a kind of Jeremiah. I don't disagree with Mr. Burford that the inequalities suffered by the African American population of the United States have hindered the American dream. Indeed, it has. I quarrel with some other things he has to say. The other, deeper element of a certain awfulness I feel has to do with one's point of view. I have to put it that way, one's sense, one's system of reality. It will seem to me the proposition before the House, and I will put it that way, is the American dream at the expense of the African American, or the American dream is at the expense of the African American? Is the question hideously loaded? And that one's response to that question, one's reaction to that question, has to depend on the effect. And in effect, where you find yourself in the world, what your sense of reality is, what your system of reality is. That is, it depends on assumptions which we hold so deeply, so as scarcely aware of them. A white South African or Mississippi sharecropper or Mississippi sheriff or a Frenchman driven out of Algeria all have, at bottom, a system of reality which compels them to. For example, in this case of the French exile from Algeria to offend French reasons from having ruled Algeria. The Mississippi or Alabama sheriff who really does believe when he's facing an African-American boy or girl that this woman, this man, this child must be insane to attack the system which he owes his entire identity. Of course, to such a person, the proposition which we're trying to discuss here tonight does not exist.
Did you hear that, Carter? If someone doesn't see what they are doing in any way as being offensive. When another person takes offense at what they've said or doing, it's confusing to them.
Sophie, it was a mistake. I said I'm sorry. I don't know what else to do.
We trusted you. I trusted you. We thought you really wanted to do this, to make a difference, to do something worthwhile. But that's not who you are. And that's okay. Your followers will love you. The exam paper, the personal journal, the assessment for our collaborators, they all matter. Fail on one, you fail the whole exam. You have to pass the theory and practice. Now, through your own lack of awareness, you've probably ruined it for all of us. And that means getting into uni or apprenticeships or part of the global citizenship program. It isn't going to happen for you, for me, or for Khalil.
I know this is important, but we have to carry on before we run out of time. We can stop and you two can just talk if you like.
Did you want to stop and talk, Sophie? If that's what you want, let's do it.
No, let's carry on. Mr. Buckley, would you like to respond to Mr. Baldwin's point that the American community can't see the damage they are doing by their refusal to see the Black community as equals?
Thank you. It seems to me that of all the indictments Mr. Baldwin has made of America here tonight, and his copious literature of protest, the one that is most striking involves, in effect, the refusal of the American community to treat him other than as a Black man. The American community has refused to do this. The American community, almost everywhere he goes, treats him with a kind of unction, a kind of satisfaction and posturing carefully before his flagellations of our civilization, that indeed quite properly commands the contempt which he so eloquently showers upon it. It is impossible, in my judgment, to deal with the indictment of Mr. Baldwin unless one is prepared to deal with him as a white man, unless one is prepared to say to him, the fact that your skin is black is utterly irrelevant to the arguments that you raise. The fact that you sit here, as is your rhetorical device, and lay the entire weight of the African-American ordeal on your own shoulders is irrelevant to the argument that we are here to discuss.
So if he breaks out the character again.
Do you hear yourself in Buckley? Here's a privileged, very privileged white man trying to change the debate from the real issue of racism by saying that the color of Baldwin's skin is not important.
I never said that.
What did you actually do, Carter? Sophie, what did he do? What happened?
Sophie opens a page on her phone and passes it to Micah. Micah looks at it and scrolls through the content. He looks at Carter and he's sad for his friends and deeply disappointed in Carter.
This is a picture of Sophie that's been photoshopped on top of someone with full African tribal dress.
I know.
Hashtag Black Lives Matter, but too many braids. Hashtag white lives have better hair. Hashtag messy hair. Hashtag Zulu.
But it was a mistake, as I've been saying.
Carter, you've liked this post. What were you thinking?
He wasn't. Let's carry on.
Okay.
Let's go from the end of Buckley's line where he says, without any sense of irony or shame, the fact Baldwin is a black man is not important to the discussion on race and racial violence. I'm sure you'll be able to deliver this line with real conviction, Carter.
It is impossible, in my judgment, to deal with the indictment of Mr. Baldwin unless one is prepared to deal with him as a white man. Unless one is prepared to say to him, the fact that your skin is black is utterly irrelevant to the arguments that you raise. The fact that you sit here, as is your rhetorical device, and lay the entire weight of the African-American ordeal on your own shoulders is irrelevant to the argument that we are here to discuss.
Mr. Baldwin?
I have to speak as one of the people who've been most attacked by what we must call here the Western or European system of reality. What white people in the world, what we call white supremacy, I hate to say it here, comes from Europe. Is how it got to America. Beneath them, whatever one's reaction to this proposition is, has to be the question of whether or not civilization can be considered as such equal, or whether one civilization has the right to overtake and subjugate, and in fact, to destroy another. Now, what happens when that happens? leaving aside all the physical facts that one can quote, leaving aside rape or murder, leaving aside the bloody catalogue of oppression, when we are in one way too familiar with already. What this does to the subjugated, the most private, the most serious thing this does to the subjugated is destroy his sense of reality. It destroys, for example, his father's authority over him. His father can no longer tell him anything because the past has disappeared, and his father has no power in the world. This means, in case of an African American born in that glittering republic, and that moment you are born, you don't any better, every stick and stone and every face is white. And since you have not seen a mirror, you suppose that you are too. It comes as a great shock around the age of 5 or 6 or 7 to discover that the flag to which you have pledged allegiance, along with everybody else, has not pledged allegiance to you. It comes as a great shock to discover that Gary Cooper killing off the Indians, when you were rooting for Gary Cooper, that the Indians were you. It comes as a great shock to discover to which is your birthplace and to which you owe your life and your identity has not, in his whole system of reality, evolved any place for you.
But the gravamen of Mr. Baldwin's charges against America are not so much that our civilization failed him and his people, that our ideals are insufficient, but they have no ideals.
I'm sorry to interrupt again, but what does gravamen mean?
It's a legal term that means the basic gist of a legal claim. It means in Latin to weigh down. I'm sorry for laying into you, Carter.
Oh, I thought I was a little more aware. I wasn't.
I know. I'm just tired. I'm tired of reading about kids getting attacked at school for no reason. I'm tired of kids thinking that ending their life is a good option. I'm tired of the constant violence I see in the world, and I just want it to stop. I want there to be some type of peace, not just for people that look like me or Baldwin, but anyone who finds himself in a space where, finds himself in a space, in a place, and a time when they are oppressed and attacked simply because of the body or family they were born into. I'm sad and I'm angry. When I see people saying one thing and doing another, that's why I'm here. That's why I want to work on this project. That's why I want to do it right. But if after all of this time, working together, working with you for so long, and you can't see that, what hope is there? I know you're telling me it was a mistake, but it still bothers me. It still makes me angry. It makes me sad.
I see that.
Carter returns to his place and continues with Buckley.
Mr. Baldwin's charges against America is that our ideals rather are some sort of superficial coating, which we come up with at any given moment in order to justify whatever commercial and noxious experiment we are engaged in. Thus, Mr. Baldwin can write in his book, The Fire Next Time, in which he threatens America. He didn't, in writing that book, speak with the British accent that he used exclusively tonight, in which he threatened America with the necessity for us.
When did Mr. Baldwin threaten America?
In The Fire Next Time, he threatened America with the necessity for us to jettison our entire civilization when he stated unequivocally that the only thing the white man has that the black man should want, he said, is power. As I wrote a few years back in 1959 in my book, Up From Liberalism, that blacks are not ready to rule for themselves. Democracy, to be successful, must be practiced by politically mature people among people where there is a consensus on the meaning of life within their society. Mr. Baldwin is treated from coast to coast of the United States with a kind of unctuous servitude, which in point of fact goes beyond anything that was ever expected from the most servile black creature by a Southern family.
So what are you proposing?
Well, I'm proposing to pay him the honor this night of saying to him, Mr. Baldwin, I'm going to speak to you without any reference whatever to those surrounding protections which you are used to, in virtue of the fact that you are black, and in virtue of the fact that your race has dreadfully suffered at the hands of my race. and I am treating you as a fellow American, as a person whose indictments of our civilization are unjustified, as a person who, if his counsels are listened to, would be cursed by all of his grandchildren's grandchildren in virtue of what he actually seeks to bring down upon America in pursuit of his neurotic mission.
Mr. Baldwin.
The disaffection, the demoralization, and the gap between one person and another only on the basis of color of their skin begins there and accelerates throughout the whole lifetime. To the present, when you realize you're 30 and you're having a terrible time managing to trust your countrymen. By the time you're 30, you have been through a certain kind of meal. And the most serious effect of the meal you've been through is, again, not the catalog of disaster, the policemen, the taxi drivers, the waiters, the landlady, the landlord, the banks, the insurance companies, the millions of dealers, 24 hours every day, which spell out to you that you are this human being. It is not that. It's by the time you've begun to see it happening in your daughter or your son or your niece or your nephew are 30 by now, and nothing you have done has helped them escape the trap. But what's worse than that is that nothing you have done, as far as you can tell, nothing you can do will save your son or your daughter from meeting the same disaster and not impossibly coming to the same end. Now, we're speaking about the expense. I suppose there's several ways to address oneself to some attempt to find out what the word means here. Let me put it this way, that from a very literal point of view, the harbors and the ports, the railroads of the country, the economy, especially of the southern states, cannot conceivably be what it has become if they had not had and do not still have, indeed for so long, for so many generations, cheap labor. I'm stating very seriously, and that is not an overstatement. I picked the cotton. I carried it to the market. And I built the railroads under someone else's whip for nothing. For nothing. 40 years ago, when I was born, the idea of a black man and a white man discussing race on equal terms was unimaginable. I grew up believing the false narrative that Africa had no history, that I was a slave saved by Europe.
Mr. Baldwin, in his book, The Fire Next Time, states quite clearly that the only thing that the white man has that the black man wants is power. It is how the black community strives to gain this power that is of concern to the white community.
40 years ago, when I was born, the question of having to deal with what is unspoken by the subjugated, what is never said to the master, or of having to deal with his reality was a very remote possibility. It was in no one's mind. When I was growing up, I was taught in American history books that Africa has no history, and neither did I. That I was a slave, about whom the less said the better, who had been saved by Europe and brought to America. And of course, I believed it. I didn't have much choice. Those are the only books there were. Everyone else seemed to agree if you walk out of Harlem, right out of Harlem downtown, the world agrees what you see is much better, cleaner, whiter, richer, safer than when you are. They collect the garbage. People obviously can pay their life insurance. Their children look happy, safe. You're not. And you go back home, we will see that, of course. That is an act of God that this is true. That you belong where you belong, where white people have put you. It's only since the Second World War that we've been a counter image in the world. That is not through any legislation on the part of any American government, but through the fact that Africa was suddenly on the stage of the world and Africans had to be dealt with in a way they've never been dealt with before. This gave an African American for the first time a sense of himself beyond a savage or a clown. He has created and will create a great many conundrums.
The primary question before the House, as posed by a larger attitude taken by Mr. Baldwin, is whether or not our civilization has shown itself so flawed as the result of the failure of its response to the African-American problem of the United States that it ought to be jettisoned. Now, I suggest that anybody who argued, as indeed it may have argued in this very House, for all I know, in this very chamber 125 years ago, the very fact that Jews and Catholics were not given the vote, were not allowed to vote in England as late as 1828, suggested English civilization ought to have been jettisoned. I suggest that the other possibility ought to be considered, that precisely the reason they did get the vote was because English civilization was not jettisoned. That the whole point of our philosophical concern ought never to make the terrible fault that is made so frequently by the positists, that we should so immanentize our own misgivings as to rush forward to jettison and to overthrow our civilization because we do not live up to its higher ideals. But meanwhile, I am saying to you that the engines of concern in the United States are working. The presence of Mr. Baldwin here tonight is a part of the reflection of that concern.
One well does not know, but I think I do know, is that black people are just like everybody else. One has used this myth of the African American and the myth of color to pretend and to assume that you are dealing essentially with something exotic, bizarre, and practically according to human laws unknown. Alas, that is not. We are also mercenaries, dictators, liars. We are human too. What is crucial here is that unless we manage to establish some kind of dialogue between these people, whom I pretend have paid for the American dream, and those others, people who have not achieved it, we'll be in terrible trouble.
Let me just say this. There is no instant cure for the race problem in America, and anybody who tells you that there is a charlatan, and ultimately a boring man. Boring precisely because he is then speaking in the kind of abstractions that do not relate to the human experience. The trouble in America where the African American community is concerned is a very complicated one.
It is a terrible thing for an entire people to surrender to the notion that 1/9 of its population is beneath them. And until that moment comes when we, the Americans, are able to accept the fact that I have, for example, that my ancestors are both white and black, that on the continent we are trying to forge a new identity for which we need each other, that I am not a ward of America, I'm not an object of missionary charity, I am one of the people who built the country. Until this moment, there's scarcely any hope for the American dream, because the people who deny participation in it by their very presence will wreck it. If that happens, it's a very grave moment for the West.
Thank you both for joining me today. And I hope that our listeners of today and in the future will find this dialogue helpful. I know I have. There is no doubt that unless we and the future generations have the courage, compassion, energy, and wisdom to move beyond the feeding of cultures of negative peace and actively engage as individuals and communities, we will never break out of the spiral of violence. Like so many cultures have failed in the past to address the underlying causes for racial violence, then Mr. Baldwin's prediction that the fire next time will consume us all. I'd like to conclude this podcast by quoting Margaret Mead, who a few years ago in a famous dialogue with James Baldwin called A Rap on Peace said, "Never underestimate the power of a small group of committed people to change the world. In fact, it is the only thing that ever has."
Sophie, Carter, that was brilliant. You can't let this go.
Excuse me.
Carter goes off stage.
That was unexpected.
So he begins to pack up her things and gets ready to leave.
Can I say one thing?
Sophie stops, looks at Micah.
You know why Carter is staying with Khalil, right?
No.
It was really bad at Carter's place. He shares a room with his 2 younger brothers. There's nowhere for him to work. His mum's new boyfriend is a bully, always on Carter's case. Now the boyfriend has moved in and his mates are around drinking and smoking most nights. He's not sleeping, he can't work. It was at the end of his rope. Khalil and his parents gave Carter a place to crash, somewhere safe so he can get away from the madness while he prepares for his final exams. Somewhere quiet so he can work. These exams are so important to Carter. They're his way out.
I didn't know that.
It's a crazy time for Carter. He feels isolated and needs to know that he belongs somewhere.
Even that Idiot Ollie and his misogynistic, racist mates.
Sometimes, when you are lost and lonely, it's easier to be part of a group than to be on your own. Baldwin talked about the Mississippi sheriff and others who do things because they think they're facing greater danger than they are. It's not an acceptance of what they do, but an understanding of who the sheriff might be. I'm not saying what Carter did was wrong. I'm not saying that what Carter did is not wrong and that he won't do it again. I don't know. But I think he deserved the benefit of the doubt.
Maybe.
Maybe not. But you can take a moment to see where he's coming from. Isn't that where peace starts? Not just shaking somebody's hand, but understanding somebody else and what they're going through. Start there. Forgiveness. If it comes later.
Carter enters.
I called Khalil. He wants to talk to me. So does his mum and dad. He said they want us all to talk over dinner tonight. I feel sick. I'm not sure I can face them.
Sophie and Micah, don't say a word.
Sophie, again, I'm really sorry.
I know. Talk to me tomorrow after you've spoken with Khalil and his parents. We can decide what to do next then.
Sophie picks up her bags and coat and leaves, and Carter and Micah watch her.
What are you going to do?
I don't know. I really don't know.
You're not a bad person.
Yeah, maybe. But I'm definitely not brave either. I have to go talk to Khalil.
Good idea.
Carter picks up his bag and coat as the video of James Baldwin's speech comes to life on screen. Michael looks around, picks up his bag, and watches the last part of Baldwin's speech in silence.
Ignored, who don't believe anything the white world says and don't entirely believe anything I or Martin say. Blame them. You watch what has happened to them in less than 20 years. It seems to me that the city of New York, for example, this is my last point, we've had Negroes in it for a very long time. If the city of New York were able, as it has indeed been able, in the last 15 years to reconstruct itself, tear down buildings and raise great new ones, downtown and for money, and has done nothing whatever except build housing projects in the for the Negroes. And of course the Negroes hate it. Presently the poverty does indeed deteriorate because the children cannot bear it. They want to get out of the ghetto. If the American pretensions were based on more solid, a more honest assessment of life and of themselves, for Negroes, when someone says urban renewal, that Negroes simply going to be thrown out into the streets, which is what it does mean now. It's not an act of God. We're dealing with a society made and ruled by men. If the American Negro had not been president of America, I am convinced that the history of the American labor movement would be much more edifying than it is. It is a terrible thing for an entire people to surrender to the notion that 1/9 of its population is beneath them. And until that moment, until the moment comes, when we, the Americans, we, the American people, are able to accept the fact that I have to accept, for example, that my ancestors are both white and black, that on that continent we are trying, that I am not a ward of America. I am not an object of missionary charity. I am one of the people who built the country. Until there is scarcely any hope for the American dream, because the people who are denied participation in it by their very presence will wreck it. And when that happens, it's a very grave moment for the West. Thank you.
So there we have it. I hope you enjoyed that. If you have any thoughts and any comments, please post. I'm not sure what emojis you'd like to choose, but I'm going to clap on your behalf. It is wonderful. Well done. That was great. What would happen now in the play, because this is political theatre, forum theatre, the actors would come back on, and then the character of
it's going to be on here. It says Sophie and Carter.
Yeah.
But your character steps in and acts as what's known as the Joker in form. He steps as the actor, just as Richard, saying, "Okay, I'm going to introduce the characters," and then the characters of Sophie and Carter come on, and we explore with the audience what they saw, what they heard, what they thought, and then depending on the input, we can either repeat a scene, we can go back, we can look at the backstory, and the backstory for all of the characters is worth looking at, and then we can either repeat scenes or we can replay them and even bring the audience in to take the place of the actors, so we begin to rehearse actual dialogue. And this technique, as I say, was established by Augusto Boal in Brazil, and I've been using it for about 30 years, and it's incredibly powerful. It's incredibly powerful for people to say their stories. So if you have any thoughts, any questions, we'll take them now. We're just looking through. Is anything? So Sandy, you love this. My connection isn't great, but I'm picking up enough to be able to enjoy the presentation. Sandy, once we've recorded this, when we meet up, because Sandy's part of a group that I've been working with in America globally of positive psychologists. And we met in Texas a few years ago. That's how we do it. And we still run a program of positive psychology, and the idea of working with my colleagues, not just in the States, but globally, when we do something like this, who out of that team, whether it's Sandy or Bill, or who could come and help? So the whole point of this production is about creating awareness and then looking at our community. And it goes back to the Margaret Mead quote. So listen to the stories and others to understand. Thank you. Sandy says, really like the idea of listening to the stories. Sandy, is it possible to swap the slide screen and bring the live performance screen to the foreground? Can I just point out that Sandy is the cameraman on this, and so obviously he has a bias. No, was the answer to that. But when we do it, Sandy, because you're going to be central to us doing the filming of this, because we're going to turn this into a online production, and again, Zandy's going to be the filming and producing on that one, so that people can access it. So well done, everyone. Paul Martin, who is a lecturer at the university. Thank you, Paul. Well done all. Steve Hurst, clap, clap, clap. Brilliant. Well done to you all. Great mix of past and present narratives to bring to life. Steve is a colleague of mine in the corporate sector, where we are doing the profiling for the group, but also the idea of bringing in this as a play to perform in front of businesses and then having the conversation. Is this also where Steve's role is? Bravo, Sandy. This work's so incredibly powerful. Absolutely love it. Anna, hi. From the perspective today on the brink of World War III with active nuclear threats, what conflict and hatreds have precipitated in so many active conflicts? Such an important point, Anna. Seems to be the overwhelming message, as we seem to be so powerless against escalating events. What can we do for the missing piece is the question. And I think that's an interesting question for you. What do you think and again, I'm not putting the burden of peace on your generation. I think too many people do. But if you had some kind of insights, or if you could wave a magic wand and said, all we need to do is this, what do you think would be the starting point for peace, reconciliation, and changing the pattern of war that we've had for centuries?
I think it's just honestly and it's also what's so heartbreaking about when you see all these sorts of conflicts is I feel like the answer is just communication and understanding. Actually talking and taking the time to listen to each other and getting what needs and wants across and coming to that sort of compromise. But there's so much in the world nowadays, as we were speaking before, of saying it has to be this way and it has to be like my way or the highway type in politics, and it's not something that works. And I feel like communication and understanding, like we say in the play with sharing stories, is so vitally important. And I feel like if people did that more, we'd be in a much more peaceful world.
I think it all comes down to when people have conflicts, they are conflicting over something where someone's like, this is right, this is wrong. Once we remove the idea of right and wrong, you have then understanding. I understand your point of view, your perception of something, and this is my perception of something. Now we have both perspectives. Let's find a middle ground where we can come together, and that can create the peace.
And in peacekeeping, in the model that we use of the program, peacekeeping, peacemaking, peacekeeping is simple rules. And that's good. When the rules get broken, we have to move to peacemaking, which requires us to be more responsive, more aware, as you say. And then the peace building is about investing systems. So what we did before we came, we spent the morning looking at one of the profiling tools. Okay, this is mine. This is mine. So everybody in the group, in the same way that we work in businesses, we profile everyone in the schools in terms of how they respond to conflict, but also the other profiling on their experience of conflict in that environment, and tend to look at whether or not they're how they score. And without going too much into the profiling, we looked at the excessive, the creative, and the destructive. And we had that conversation today as a group of young people coming in, as a group of actors, to say, why is it important that you need to know your values and drive? So we use this same tool that we use in businesses, same tools that we use in schools, to profile the actors so that we start from the point of conflict, not from the point of peace. We accept we're in conflict. In fact, as actors and the directors, we want the conflict. We want the creative conflict. What we don't want is that conflict to move into violence and to meanness. And what was really, does anyone want to sort of comment on their profiles that you may have observed, or anything that not that I want you to share anything, but there was a really interesting one, because each one of these fine people will respond to conflict in a very different way, and knowing it is important for getting the ground rules right, so we can be productive in our rehearsal. Any thoughts or comments from that?
Well, from my profile, I had quite a high warrior and lower peacemaker, peacekeeper, and facilitator. And what I understood from this is I'm very willing to speak out. I'm very articulate about things that bother me, any issues that I'm having and that I know are wrong. I will speak out on it, and there's no problem about that. That's something I've always done from young. I think in terms of the peacekeeper, it's something to me that I don't like to see people just standing around and holding hands and smiling and just pretending that everything is okay, because things are not okay. I like people to speak on the issues and look at actively changing them. And the example that I gave the guys earlier was saying that you don't see color. That's problematic. That's peacekeeping, trying to like be peaceful in a sense of, oh, I don't see color. No, we're all human. That's okay. But I don't see color is problematic, because that means you don't see how the world sees me and how my experience as a Black woman is different to somebody else's as a white man or a white woman or Asian woman, etc., etc. You have to see color. It's about what you do with that. What does that mean to you? How do you approach these people? How do you speak to these people? How do you perceive these people? That's what it's about.
And the heart of this debate between Baldwin and Buckley, as Buckley's character right at the beginning saying, I'm not even going to see your colour, which is like, okay, we haven't got an argument. There's no debate here. And which is a manipulation. And to deny someone a voice, deny them what their culture, the starting point for peace is to recognise that someone has a different story to you. Well, do you have anything to add in terms of your experience of the profile?
Yeah, so I'm quite similar. I'm very much heavy on the warrior side, high scores for that. But I'm also very, very good at peacekeeping. I think it's to do with kind of the morals I set myself. Growing up, there was certain morals that I was sticking to. There was a code I was sticking to, which I knew I wasn't thinking about other people. I wasn't taking into account people's journeys. And as I've grown up and as I've experienced life, you start to understand the own situations that you go through and how personal they are to you. You know that that's very important to you. So when you look at another person, you can tell they got their own issues and problems that is behind closed doors, and you know that's very important to them. And the way I feel like I can make the world more peaceful and better is by just accepting the fact that they go through that too, giving people the space to be how they are, giving them a space to feel safe in my company. Is kind of how I like to deal with things. But also, if someone is, if I see something that I'm not agreeing with, I will speak up about it. But the way I'll speak up about it is a very one way, which is just you have to tell the truth. I'm not into like people telling me fibs and that. Let's say things how things are, so we can get to the bottom line of a situation. I don't need to know the X, Y, Z of situation. But yeah, that's more about me. I feel like we live in a world, like you say, where there's a lot of conflict. There's a lot of the war that is on. You see what's happening in Ukraine right now. So I think the way we can make the world a little bit better is just be kind to whoever we see. The next person.
Let me just answer, because we've got a lot of comments.
Yeah, sorry. Okay.
So no, just answer. Congrats to all, Mark. It's scary that almost 60 years this still resonates. What did you do? Oh yeah. So great conversation. Thanks, Yoga with Tessa. I thought about the footage and the photo showed the highlighted feelings well, and then bringing that up to date with the present time conflict was very effective. Good point about talking about understanding. Sandra, appreciate the above comments as well. This is a great conversation that's going on, which is actually the point of this. But you're experiencing online what we will experience in real time. But Mark, you say a really interesting way. I agree with Tessa. Do you think that there may be value in including contemporary images alongside the historical ones? Interestingly enough, yes, Mark, because actually on our slides here, when we go into the debate, you can't see yet, but there are contemporary images. During the debate, we bring exactly that. We bring contemporary images, George Floyd and others. So you're absolutely spot on. So thanks, Mark. You obviously have a great creative bent to this. So yeah, and we will be adding Obama's Hope poster. Great thoughts. Thanks, Marge. Lots of excited about the product. Marge, I'll catch up. Marge and I should point out, Marge is just a brilliant. Every Friday, Marge and I have a conversation. Marge is in her 80s. She was a radical movement in the peace movement in the 60s, and she hung out with Yoko Ono and her boyfriend, whoever. But Marge has been extraordinarily politicized. Dr. Marge, sorry, I should point out. And she's also part of the positive psychology. So Marge, for me, has been a real mentor, a real support. And I think this highlights our community isn't just the people we're born next to, who connect with us. Thanks, Yoga. Creative conflict, yes, Marge. Yes. Lovely expression. Sunday. Okay, great conversations going on there. What about your thoughts in terms of the profile?
I think the most shocking thing I found with mine is like the others. I'm quite similar, where I lean more into that warrior side of our charts. But I also found that my dictator was actually quite high, but I still have a red box because it's. I sort of realised that, like, as I know me as a person, I am someone who's in life. I'm quite laid back, go with the flow, sort of like, look, people, sort of similar to you. People have their own things. Words are just words. People can say or do whatever to me, but like, it gets to a point where it is that thing where it's like, I'm someone who I'm fine with it, and I'm quite a forgiving person. But then it's once that forgiveness and stuff gets taken for granted, exactly, and it gets pushed and pushed and pushed. And I'm someone who is like, I'm totally fine with it until I'm not. And I obviously my graph shows that, like, yeah, when I snap and I go to that dictator mode, I don't resonate with it, and I really don't like that. It's like a part of me which not scared of isn't like the right term, but it's that it's very distant from me, and it's a kind of personality which maybe I'm not very connected with. So it's been really interesting to sort of go over that and realise things about me and things that usually I don't really think about, and these like sort of these sides of me. And sort of similar to what Richard said is, I think I was told once, or I read it somewhere, a quote saying like, "You don't know what I've been through to make me this kind," which I feel like is a really nice quote to sort of say that, you know, don't take kindness for granted. Like being nice and being actually kind and trying with people and forgiving and having that forgiveness, people don't have to give you that.
That's a strength.
Yeah, it's exactly that. And I feel like that's something that reflects in my personal profile, which is I'm someone who I always want to give kindness. And whenever I stop doing that, or I snap in that sense, I then go to those places which I'm not very comfortable with.
A good question from Zandy. We're going to just have another 5-10 minutes. We're going to wrap up, but I just want to finish off these questions. Question is, how did you incorporate your profiling result in your rehearsal and read-through process? Well, we did it by starting with it. We began with it. And what the cast hasn't seen, in fact, I'll share this with you. This is our group profile. This is what the whole group looked like when you merge us. We are basically. Do you want to see this?
Yeah.
Okay. So, in fact, let me just share this. What we do with our business clients and school clients, we take all the data. We take all the data and the profiles, and through the wizardry that is the interweb, we create an image. And that's what we've done with the cast. You haven't seen this yet, have you?
No.
And in it, we can list everything here. So we have our group profile. So our group profile on here, charging up, shows what we all merge to. If we put all of our profiles together, is this. So for those of you who are interested, the Peacekeeper, basically Green says, we are really, it's a good group. Yeah, your book. Because the dominant here is we can warrior, we can direct, we can commute, we can do done with, to use a restorative language, we can do with, but also we can challenge. And also we know how to and when to step back. That's a real balance between. And the Peacekeepers, the facilitators, that's all good balance. The ones we need to be aware of as a group, sometimes some of us are going to get a bit narky. And I'm not looking at anyone. Sometimes we can push our own agenda. We just need to be aware of that. And other times we will serve each other too much. We will give too much and we want to save everybody. And I think, so Sandy, to answer your question, when we do this, when we bring this into our rehearsals, we are now aware of what our strengths are, what our weaknesses are. I hope that answers your question. Thoughts before I go? Thank you. Thank you, Craig. Thanks for logging in. I will catch up with you and I'll speak to you tomorrow. If there are any other thoughts, but the one thing I would ask is, are you okay for us to use some positive feedback? If you could follow us on social media, use it with the Northampton film, but NN
Creative Place.
NN Creative Place. Follow us on that. And if you could respond positively on social media to what you've seen, and if you've got anything that you want to ask, if you're going to give us a quote or something, because we're now in the stage of trying to promote it, put a quote in before you go that we can use for our marketing campaign. But we've got between now and the 18th of February, just to bring you up to date, we will be performing this for the first time on the 18th of February in the Cambridge Union, which is the 60th anniversary of this debate. And over the next few weeks, we're securing funding and getting the rehearsals in. But you were here first, and you'll probably be here last as well. And so we'd like to give you a little round of applause. Thank you.
Got a question.
Thank you.
Someone said where?
Question. Where do you find out? Social media. Sandy, you follow on LinkedIn. Follow me on LinkedIn, and you do, Sandy. Facebook for Royal Leighton or Undiscovered Country, or Instagram which is royleighton.change. But again, if you want anything, you want to have a chat, go to undiscoveredcountry.org.uk, click in the contact form, and I'm happy to chat with anyone virtually. And if you live in Northamptonshire, I'll come and have a coffee. Okay, a round of applause again to these lovely people. Thanks, James. This is The Creative Place, signing off. Right.